the greatest bantamweight champion of all time, joins us. Hello, Dom. How are you?
What's up, Ariel? Good. I'm good, man. How are you? I hear your conversation about me not getting back to you a couple times. What's that about?
I just said, yeah, I knew you were listening. I said I was annoying, so I said it was my bad.
Yeah. No, I mean, how do you interpret that you were annoying me?
I probably asked too many times. Twice?
Or maybe I just wasn't ready for an interview.
I know, that's right. And
That's it.
isn't there a part of you that's like, you know what, bud? Leave me the F alone, all right? I've given you enough interviews. Just give me some time.
Well, I mean, I think the fact that you know that that's a conversation for all us fighters and you do it anyway is something for you to think about.
Stop. By the way, I usually have a personal rule where I never ask someone right after a loss, like unless I could tell that they want to speak. That's a personal rule.
But you did, so.
Well, I think I waited a little bit.
Okay.
All right. How are you?
I'm great. I'm outstanding, man. I mean, come on. Life is good. Life is too good. Let's be honest.
Why is life so good?
Man. I mean, I come from a trailer park. I'm out of the trailer park. Let's be honest. Life is good, man. I got a job. My family loves me. I've got a home over my head. I've got a car in the garage. I've got a job in a time where a lot of people don't have one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things to be grateful for, don't you think? Honestly,
absolutely. I'm very appreciative, very grateful. That's great perspective because you've had these things for a while, but it seems like you're very appreciative of them right now. Is there a reason for that?
Well, it's always been that way, but you're asking me how I'm doing, and so I'm telling you right now, that's where I'm at. Yeah, gratitude it's impossible to be in any kind of sadness when you're in gratitude, and it's not that I am sad. It's just that it's impossible. It's physically impossible. So I focus on the things I can be grateful for as much as possible, especially times like this where everything's up in the air.
Sure. Can I ask, back in August after the fight, were you sad initially?
Sad isn't the word. It's disappointment in, that obviously the whole goal when you put in a 12-week camp is to win. And when you don't win, there's disappointment. But sadness isn't really the term, I don't think, for me. It's more just like you got to reset everything. You have to look at everything and rewrite it. So it's just okay, reassessment.
And have you watched it?
Yeah.
Because you're such a critical eye. You're such a great analyst. I know you do a ton of research, ton of homework. I think the idea of you watching yourself, especially after a moment like that, is fascinating. How do you watch it? Like, do you just sit and watch? Do you take notes? Are you with people? Are you with coaches? Are you by yourself? What is that experience like?
You do all of it. At first, you watch it alone. Then you watch it with coaches so that they can make the assessment. That's still going to come. I've just been watching it on my own. And, Tarantula MMA, Randy Brown, I actually heard, because I get the benefit of doing these fighter interviews. And I learned so much from these fighter interviews, so much from the fighters. That's one of the reasons why it's nice to be able to be on them, because there's so many different minds you get to pick. And something he said is he goes back and he watches his wins and his losses over and over and over and over and over and over. And like he worded it like that. And I remember looking at him thinking, man, what a strong soul to go back and watch your losses over and over and obsess about it. And he's a young up and comer, and I feel that as a veteran in the sport, through my assessment and my experience, as long as I've been in the game, the ones who are actually the experienced ones are the youngest fighters now. It's weird how I see it that way.
Really?
It's like, because they have the intangible, which is the clear intention and the you can't stop me, because they don't know any better. They're just free. They're just so free. And so I love to listen to, I got some 21-year-olds in my camp. Like, you could literally knock them down 3 times and there's no score that they're keeping. They're just trying to kill you. They don't know there's a loss going on. There's just no scorecard in their heads. And any up and comer, any youngster that wants to grow and get themselves out of the gutter that they're in, or whatever they call, whatever their intention is to getting to the best in the sport, those are the ones you got to learn from. They'll do anything. They'll run up a mountain. They'll sleep in a gutter. Those are the ones to learn from. And so Randy Brown, listening to him say that, it's like, okay, there was a time in this sport where film study wasn't even a thing.
Right.
You don't watch, it's not even, you can't even find film. You look on Sherdog, you can't even find people. That's the era I was in. This era, watching it grow to this time where now it's like football and basketball and baseball, you watch film. And if you don't watch film, you're behind. And listening to a Randy Brown who's young, in his 20s, rising up the ladder, and then watching all my young guys that I train with, they get me ready for these fights. It's just you got to pay attention to that. Yeah, you got to watch the film, and it's not easy either to go back and watch yourself lose. So that was something I heard from Randy Brown. I just want to pay respect to because that's something that a lot of people could learn from, I think, is the humility it takes to go back and watch that. And I think that's why fighters sometimes are the most down-to-earth people that you can meet, is because we have to watch those things. And we know the humanity that's in us better than any pro athlete on earth, I think, because we don't play games. It's life and death.
Was there a period in your career early on when you didn't watch film?
Well, I was winning a lot, so I never really watched my wins.
Wow. Do you regret that?
No, I can always go back and watch them.
No, but like in the moment, were you appreciating them?
No, I wouldn't say I regret it, but what I noticed now is going back, I didn't appreciate any of my wins. I didn't appreciate any of the things that I've done as much as maybe I could have. I wouldn't say should have, because everything's the way it was supposed to be. But like, I could have probably been. I can remember winning a world title and being more upset at myself for the damage I took in the fight than I was for losing some fights, which is super. It was a real big learning lesson for me to show me how the dichotomy of wins and losses and how equal they really are if you actually take a minute and pay attention. So yeah, that's why I think I don't get sad about losses, but you definitely, like, it takes a moment in time, which I've been taking this whole time, month and a half, to just sit with and notice it and allow your body to do whatever it's got to do with it. I'll wake up in the middle of the night, you're having a nightmare, you're pissed off at yourself. Wake up at 3 a.m. and just yell, the F word.
Really?
Because that's the first thought that comes to your head. Is you open your eyes and the first thought that comes to your head is that bad thing, that loss, the very first thing. And you just you yell out and you let yourself be there. And then you move forward like this. It's part of the process of learning. It's never going to be pain-free.
How many times have you watched it?
Myself, by myself, I've watched it like 3 or 4 times.
Okay. And what is your assessment?
I'll watch it more with my coaches. Well, if you look at my past, any of my losses, I lost by guillotine, and then I've lost by kick, essentially 3 different times. Cody cut me, Henry caught me, and that one is something that I'm still like, I really do believe I needed more time, but it's done. So I lost that one by kick. And then this last one was by kick again. So it's a common assessment of analysis that, I listen to Russell, and I use a lot of like comparison and parallels in other sports. Russell Wilson said something that was really funny to me. And he was a pocket runner when he first came to the NFL. Like, he ran out of the pocket. He's all over the place. I don't know if anybody knows football, but I know you do.
Yeah.
So he's all over the place, right? All over the field. And then one of the goals that he said was that made him one of the best is when he could stick to fundamentals, stay in the pocket like Brady, like Aaron Rodgers, and have that stature, even though he's not that. Like, to be able to be that, but then use all his other gifts, worst case scenario, to still have in the back pocket is what makes him special. I see that similar with me, when I'm raising in the ranks and I'm staying in the top 10 of the world at this level with all the film study on me, with all the years of tape that you have to watch me, it's a lot of time people have to adjust and make adjustments while the sport's evolving well. Also, everybody has all the tools. Everybody has all the coaching. Everybody has all the gym now. You got personal trainers that are teaching people how to recover well. Like, everything's there for all of us now. So all that mixed together is like, you got to look at this and analyze it from a place of, how do I stick to fundamentals? If I stick to fundamentals and stay with those fundamentals and then have my gifts that I use, then I'm good. And that's the game. Is I can't take away what I am, because it's winning. Like, I've won many world titles and I was still winning that fight. It's just that you've got to find these margins where you can go fundamentally sharp, back to your gifts, fundamentally sharp, back to your gifts that make you different. And if we change what makes me different, if Eric Del Ferro changes what makes me different, me slipping and moving, then you kind of take away what I am and what's helped me win. But if you don't make some adjustments, maybe change the margin of me being who I am and kind of minimize it to, what if I did 2.5 minutes of unconventional, minute of commit. I'm not saying that there's a number or a time that you can set, but there is adjustments that could be made. And when I look at it, when I listen to Russell Wilson, he said, what makes me the best when I can stay fundamentally sharp the most. So when I can stay fundamentally sharp, that's where the sport is. Early in the sport, when I was champion, it's pure offense was everything. Offense, defense, the offensive, out cardio, everything. As the sport's progressed, it's become tight defenses now back what's coming on. Tight striking defense, fundamentally sharp, keeping a stance. And then what's also switched is now we're switching stance. So the fundamental striking defense is there at a whole nother level and different. And the stance switch is different, which, so that people at home can know, that's the equivalent of having the best basketball player on earth being able to go lay up on the left and the right. It's the best pitcher on earth being able to throw lefty and righty. It's the best batter on earth being able to bat switch hitter. It's the best soccer player being able to kick the ball in the goal with the left foot and the right foot. That's the level of sport that mixed martial arts has gone to overnight in 10 years. People are now turning lefty and just as effective with their defense and their offense as they are being conventional, as they are being southpaw. So it's like, now you're seeing guys like Jose Aldo get beat by a guy like Jan because the man's switching to lefty, and that's a whole different fight.
Right.
So it's like, you're fighting 2 fights in one fight now, and then you've got 5 rounds, which is 5 fights in one night. 5 fights in one night where you've got 2 different stances. This is the level. The sport's just rising very quickly.
Wow.
And so you got to make the analysis. And the analysis is fundamentals are going to be key when guys are switching stance like this, which wasn't the case early on when I was winning titles. So it's just different. And I appreciate it. I appreciate watching the sport evolve. I appreciate being part of it. I was one of the first guys, me and Demetrius Johnson, I was in the pound for pound list. Me and DJ were at the top of the pound for pound list and 2 of the only guys that ever switched stance early on. And now you're seeing it as not just switching stance for a moment, but these guys are switching stance and staying there defensively and offensively, sharp and sound. It's so fun to watch, and it's fun to be part of. It's honorable to still be at the highest level and still competing with these guys.
Your style was revolutionary when you were champion. Do you feel now like you have to be revolutionary again? Because, as you say, people are now doing a lot of the things that you were doing. You were one of the only ones to do back in the day.
I don't see it as revolutionary now. Now it's stick to fundamentals.
Okay. So does that mean next time we see you, there'll be less of that old school? No.
I changed nothing. I can't change anything,
Right.
Ariel. Like, that's who I am. I got, my hand was even up when I got caught. So it's like I was even like defending myself. But this is a game of inches. Like, you've seen, how many fights have you seen? For instance, one of my favorite fights of all time to watch, John Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson.
Yeah.
You see in the 5th round, John Jones lands that spinning elbow, and it just changes the tide of the fight. We're 1 strike away, and these guys were trading for 23 minutes.
Yeah.
And we're always an inch and 1 strike away from something landing on the other. I hit him, and I was winning for three rounds, and I could have dropped him any of those times. He could have dropped me any of those times. It happened when it happened. When you look at the analysis, all you can do is make your own adjustments and control the controllables. I can't control the uncontrollables. And the uncontrollables are the other person. So I focus on me, and fundamentals is something that I can add. I'm already doing it. That's already what we've been adding to my game. It's already what we've been doing. It's just, there's more. Just add a little bit more for a little bit of a longer pace. But when you watch that fight, it was a great competitive fight, and I was, doing really well, and I got hit, and it was a nice read by them, and that's how it goes. I've made reads and I've embarrassed people, and that's happened to me now too.
Was he better than you thought he would be?
No, it's top 5 in the division. If you think that the top 5 in the division aren't going to be world champions, you're an idiot.
And I think it's the best weight class in MMA, to be honest. I think it's the best weight class by far in the UFC. Do you think he can be champion?
I agree that it's the best weight class in MMA. And I think that, like I said, if you're in the top 5, you absolutely can be champion. Definitely. I think that just like for the rest of us, matchups are more favorable than others. Yes. So I think that if Dillashaw and Moraes and Vera were to fight, it'd be a better fight for Vera than Vera and Sterling. Stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
Like he could still beat both of them. He's still at that level, but it's like there's certain matchups that are going to be tougher for each of us. I think that for Sterling, he called out the toughest fight for him in the division. I think he, in his head, wanted to get that out of the way personally.
That's
because
Dillashaw?
For his style. Yeah, I think so. For his style, that's the one of the toughest ones in the division. Yeah, for him.
Right.
Him and me. I think Dillashaw and me are the two toughest because we scramble and we wrestle. And when you watch Jan, what made him win that fight was the non-scramble ability and the grappling of Jan in those positions. Whereas Dillashaw's really hard to get a hold of after he's been taken down. I'm really hard to get a hold of after we've been taken down. Certain guys scramble and wrestle. Jan uses his striking defense and his wrestling defense. But once you get past that first move, you could see that you can kind of stay with him. I don't know if Sterling's going to be able to keep control of Dillashaw the way he was able to keep control of Jan. That's the difference maker, I think, is can Sterling control Dillashaw like he did Jan? And I think that Dillashaw has enough wrestling ability that he's able to make it just a pure stand-up fight for 5 rounds, which is, I think, a tougher matchup for Sterling.
Do you think Dillashaw wins?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm picking Aljo because I think Aljo's big and strong, and the style that he fights, he keeps you on the outside with kicks, and then when you try to get in the boxing range, he wrestles.
Right.
So as long as he's got 5 rounds wrestling cardio, he can win. That's the question. Do you have 25 minutes of wrestling and grappling cardio? And I don't mean necessarily grappling, because remember, part of grappling cardio is control. He's going to have wrestling cardio, which is scramble ability, takedowns, nonstop, clinch work, and then just nonstop scramble, wrestle, scramble, wrestle, scramble, wrestle. I don't see a lot of moments where you're going to get Dillashaw and just keep that static hold. If he can, he wins quick. That's best case scenario for Sterling. But if you look at the results, TJ's takedown defense is up there. It's hard to hold him. Even if you take him down, it's hard to keep him there. Whereas Jan's hard to take down, but once you do get him there, you've seen he can be held there by certain people. In the results of the matchups that you watch of Jan's film, he can be held there if he does get taken down. That's what Sterling did, and that's what Magomedov did in another show that I saw when I watched Jan too. So we've seen that, whereas we haven't really seen that with Dillashaw, where somebody's just held him down and grappled him and controlled him. He's been outstruck, he's been outmaneuvered, taken down, outpointed, but not just, you're done. And I think Aljo kind of needs that each round in order to keep that pace that he likes to keep.
Earlier today, speaking of those two, there was a media day in Abu Dhabi, and TJ said very matter-of-factly that he's the greatest bantamweight of all time, bantamweight champion of all time. I went through your resume, his resume. I think that's the debate. And I don't, obviously you're going to be confident, you're going to believe in yourself. I don't know how you can argue, and that's not a knock on him, but considering the amount of title defenses you had versus his, considering your matchup head to head, can I ask for your response to that? How do you feel about that statement, and do you think it's a no-brainer that you are the greatest of all time?
I think on it, and I mean this, like, the people decide that, not the person. Like, if I'm over here saying I'm the greatest of all time, anybody can say that about themselves. History is made by the people, not by the person who does it. Like, we're going to be remembered by what we've done and how we carried ourselves during that time, who we made a difference for, who we made better around us. So to me, that's what matters more than you're the greatest of all time. Like, that's going to be said by the people. I can't decide that for myself. I believe that my results speak for themselves, and I'm still here competing at the highest level. Like I said, I've been on the pound for pound list. I have all these things. You can go find all these things, but when it comes down to it, I've never been in trouble with USADA. And that if there's anything that you can look at that makes a difference, that makes a difference for other people. That doesn't necessarily make a difference for me, because I come up in the sport that you never know. So you can't hold on to it. You just got to fight whoever's there. But it's like, what else do you got to say? That's a difference maker.
Are you going to keep fighting?
I'm here. Yeah. What do you mean?
You want to resume? I think there was a question, obviously, after the fight. If I didn't think so, but obviously wanted to ask if that would be it for you. If you would say, "All right, I'm done." Is there anything to that, or you're going to continue your career?
I'm here. Like, I'm just right now. It's been a month and a half. I'm just running again. I'm lifting. I'm getting the body strong. I'm still at the highest, still top 10 level. I don't look at myself after that loss and go, oh, I'm not there anymore. I do the opposite. I go, all right, speed's still there. Power's still there. All the stuff's still there. We just got, tighten up some defense. You either retire or you lose. And those are your choices. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think a lot of people who retire, they didn't lose because they retired.
Right.
It's like you can just keep going, and, but there's a point where you're just going to, stack up too many losses because you're not there anymore. I don't really look at my last fight and go, you're not at the level. These guys are just outclassing you. It wasn't really that. So take my team, fix the fundamentals, and take it a day at a time, get my body strong, and just training and love training. Like, this is, I'm still calling fights. I'm a fan of the sport. I'm a fan of Dillashaw. I fought him. I'm a fan of Sterling. I'm a fan of all these guys, whether they understand it, Jan, O'Malley, like, so to get to call their fights, to compete against them, it's cool because I'm still here. I'm still competing.
You're the only one
to get there.
By the way, you're the only one. It was almost kind of like it hit me when you fought Cheeto. You're the only one of the broadcast team, not the desk guys, but the the color analysts that is still fighting.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Vera is on the Spanish side.
Well, I don't watch that. Fair, but I mean, of the guys on ESPN and whatnot of that crew, there's 5-6 of you guys. You're the only one, which is supremely impressive that you're able to do both. And you looked great. You looked amazing. It was vintage Dom early on, and so I'm happy to hear that you're going to keep fighting. I have to say, a little bit sad. I was in the back of my mind, I was like, man, now's the time. Dom versus Aldo. The 35 King, 45 King WEC guys, but it doesn't look like he's gone now. Did you ever have those thoughts, before he left, where you're like, oh, maybe this is the one? That's kind of like a dream fight for a lot of us who kind of came up in that era. Back.
I was calling for it before this Vera fight. I thought that should have happened.
Yeah.
It's not like those both. He beat Vera, so it was like, all right. I'm always trying to. I've always been just trying to move up the ladder. Vera moved himself into that spot, so let's fight. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, that was my shot, and I needed to beat him to keep the momentum going, to keep going, and I get that. The crazy part is I'm one fight away from being back in that conversation at any given time.
Yep.
One fight.
Yep.
I go out there. I just got called out by Jonathan Martinez. What a sweetheart of a fucking guy. You know what I mean? Let's be honest. The nicest guy on earth. calling me out, and it makes sense. Like, do you want to fight a guy that's got 300 followers and is lethal, or do you want to follow a guy who's been doing this for a long time and is also lethal? But either way, you're facing two dangerous guys. One guy moves you. He was a former champ. One guy is nasty, not a former champ. Who are you going to call out? People are going to keep calling me out. I understand that. I can't knock them. All I can do is sit there with the microphone in my suit and go, thank you. Appreciate the call out. Respects. Like, what are you supposed to say? Be mad? Like,
No.
I get it. It's
respect.
It's a business move.
Yeah.
It's a business move. And it's a little weird when you're standing there and you're like, do I be fighter Dom? Do I be analyst Dom? I think this is things that people don't really know unless you're in that position. It's not necessarily always easy, because you want to tread lightly on the fighters, because I know what it's like to be in that position. And you also got to do the job as an analyst, which is what your producers are in your ear about. So you got producers, and then you've got the fighter, and they're conflicting jobs.
Right.
Let's be honest. They don't necessarily work together. So all I can do is pray that my producer, Zach Candido, gives me a break on some of these shows, doesn't make me travel too much internationally, because that's the hard part, is how do I travel internationally and compete for the top 10 of the entire world and keep giving the platform to these fighters and keep supporting them and building them and explaining what they do so amazing, and still build my career and still be sharp and still be strong. That's what I did in this last fight. I took all the time off to prepare for it. So you can't really do the TV stuff.
Right.
And so you hope that that's understandable with the producer, and you hope that that's understandable with fighting, with the coaches. So the balance of those two careers is definitely something that I don't think people really understand. There's not a lot of athletes in the world that are doing color commentary of the same sport that they're competing in. It's like telling Aaron Rodgers to go jump on the desk in the middle of the football season and talk about the guys that he's going to face next week. Like, how do you, on Monday Night Football, Aaron Rodgers is going to face that team, and then he's got to commentate about him so that he can pay for the camp for the next game. That's my life.
Yeah.
I'm blessed to have it. I'm grateful to have it, but it is a lot of work. I work a lot. I work very hard to be where I'm at. It's not just given.
When you know that Rogan doesn't go international, there's two massive bantamweight fights on the pay-per-view this weekend. Is there a part of you that's like, oh, that's one I'd like to call, or are you happy international, you can sit back? Like, how do you...
Well, I can train. I can train. Like, if I'm international, I can train, but I got to bring somebody with me, train every day while I'm there, you get what I'm saying? Like, you have to bring a partner with you everywhere you go. You have to be drilling. You have to be getting hit. You have to be running. You have to be boxing. You have to be hitting pads. You have to be grappling. So if you don't have a body with you, nobody cares if you're calling TV. Like, your body has to be ready to fight, whether you're calling TV or not. So you got to mix it all together. So to not have to travel internationally is quite a gift when you're a professional athlete.
Do you have a preference who would be next? Do you have someone on your mind?
No, I don't. I think that I'm going to keep probably getting called out in the division, which is what's going to happen. So I don't think it's going to be too hard for me to find a matchup. I don't think I really need to think about it. And let's say I had a matchup in mind, they give me somebody totally different. So what's the point? I'm just like, train, fundamentals, get the body sharp, feel good, be happy doing what you're doing. And I think the next thing will take place. And I'm just excited to watch this fight. I mean that when I say, like, the only reason I bring up USADA when it comes to TJ Dillashaw is not out of disrespect. It's just literally the facts. It's like, if we had one difference in our careers, it's just that. He's one of the nastiest guys in the whole. I'm proud I beat him. I'm proud that I got to fight him. Just watching him still win makes me proud because I beat him. When you beat guys like that are doing well, I enjoy seeing that. It's great. I hope Vera goes on to keep winning. I do. I hope he goes for the title and wins it. That shows me where I'm at too. So it doesn't bother me to see these guys win. I'm fans of them. Regardless of what happened with Dillashaw, I'm a fan because I'm an athlete in this sport and I know how hard it is. So it's cool to get to watch them.
By the way, just a couple more things and I'll let you go. Great insight as always. Just curious, speaking of this weekend, what does Sean O'Malley have to do to pull off this upset?
You know, he's got the body and the frame, and he's grown up a lot. I think people are forgetting this. He's not a kid anymore. This dude's grown into his body. He's a lot bigger and a lot stronger than he was 2 years ago, a year ago. He's growing. He's filling out. So he's a big guy at this weight class. I think the range he switches stance and throws like lunging left hands, lunging right hands. It's like, I call it a dart, and he's super good with that, which makes him longer. I think the key for him is footwork, and I think he's going to offset stance with Jan every time to stay longer. So if Jan goes southpaw, he's going to go conventional. That way he's always playing that lead hand fight game, like Diaz. And if you watch any good southpaws, they're always playing that lead hand fight game. They're always reaching for that lead hand. That can only happen when the stance is offset. Southpaw, conventional, southpaw. So I think that we're going to see O'Malley play that game a lot to shut down the lead hand of Jan, which makes him longer. Footwork, lateral movement, long darting motions. And other than that, he's got to stop the takedowns. And he's got to get the respect. But he's got power in the hands to get the respect. So the one thing you got to look at is Jan. How did he lose to Sterling? He got inside in the pocket and then got wrestled. Well, does O'Malley have the skill to wrestle when Jan gets into that pocket? I mean, that's yet to be seen, and I think that's what makes the difference in this fight.
What about Charles Islam? How do you see that going?
If you look at Oliveira and his past, the only fighter that beats him ever in all of his losses is Makhachev. That's it. It's that style, like the guy who takes him down, who can stay out of submissions and keep Oliveira on his back. It doesn't need to be pretty. It doesn't need to be fancy. It needs to be forward, keep the forward pressure, stop the hard defense, get the takedown, and blanket for 5 rounds if you're Makhachev. And that's the one thing that's beaten Oliveira. If you look at any of his fights, it's the only way he's really been beaten, is that way. So that's how I see if you're Makhachev, that's what you got to do. You make it a boring fight, you blanket him, you get a takedown around, and you keep him there, and you don't let him up. That's it. And if you're Oliveira, march forward, throw your knees up the middle, throw your elbows in the pocket, throw your long strikes to get him go into that pocket and connect with the knees and the elbows. You throw the long strikes to force them inside, into your knees, into your elbows. Forward pressure pulls out the timing of the takedown, and you try to knee him, you try to elbow him, and you try to submit him. And every moment of the fight, he's going to be having to try to submit or get to his feet. If he doesn't get the submission, he's got to use that submission attempt to get back up. Your Oliveira, that's the one thing that could change for him, is does he use the submission attempts to stay in full guard and keep attacking with his black belt? Or does he attack a couple times and then use his guard to get back up and create a stand-up fight? I think in the past, Oliveira's kind of stayed on his back a little longer and then lost the decision. If he can make the adjustment of spending a little less time on his back, even if he's taken down, and using his guard to get back up to his feet a little bit more, he can mix in the guard and the striking and really create a lot of problems for Makhachev. Man, incredible stuff. That's why you're one of, if not the best when it comes to this. By the way, time frame for you, when do you think, we just lost him. I wanted to ask time frame. I know it's still fresh, but what do you think? First quarter, second quarter? Have you even thought of that, of when you would return? No, I'm just having fun, training.
Yeah.
Honestly, Ariel, it's hard. It's to be world champion and then now be in the top 15. I'm just glad to be competing at the highest level in the sport still, what a blessing I've been to be able to have the career I've had. And now I still get to compete against the best. So I'm just trying to enjoy the moment. This doesn't last forever for any of us. I'm healthy. I'm strong. I haven't been this healthy in most of my career. So that means that my mind is there, because I find that when my mind is healthy, my body follows. So I feel really healthy mentally. I feel more healthy mentally than I've ever felt in my life, which is contributing to my body. And so I'm just happy to be competing and be healthy and be facing the best in the world at this time still.
And that's a beautiful thing considering everything you've been through. It still is amazing to me that all those guys that you came up with, none of them are fighting anymore. Not only are you still fighting, but at the top of the game. It's an incredible testament to your heart, your mind, your body. One last thing, could I ask, and maybe you don't have a good answer, but I like to dig a little deeper with you. Is there something that the fans, the media, the community that we don't appreciate when it comes to how a fighter deals with a loss? I was reading someone talk about like losses and how it was Deron win and how he feels like, and I'm paraphrasing here, he's like, no one understands the depression that a fighter goes through after a loss, and what life is like on that Monday after a loss. And I feel like even myself, like, I've been doing this for a long time, but it's like, all right, on to the next event. We talk about it on Monday and then it's on to the next one. And then you have to sit with it. And you have to, even like you talking about waking up and saying the F word is not something that we think about, or I think even appreciate, especially with the gambling now. Everyone cares about their picks and this and that. And we don't remember like how much you pour into the fight, the 3 months, and then what it does to you afterwards. And so I'm just wondering, since you're coming off of it, like, do you feel like we don't, it's not like losing a football game. It's not like losing a basketball game. This is you, and sometimes it happens in a very, very tough way. What do we need to know and appreciate about this?
The crazy part about that is, you might not like what I say or whatever, but I come from a place of 100% responsibility. That's my choice. It's a context. It's not a fact. And so I choose everything I create in my life. Everything from the response of my loss to what I created this. So the question isn't, how do I get everybody else to understand? It's, how do I stop fighting what is? That's it. This is it. You lost. And if I fight it, I'm miserable. If I can surrender to the fact that it's done, it's in the past, surrender is probably not a good word because people might not understand it, but stop resisting what is, like stop fighting it and just accept it, I guess is the word. You're not as miserable. So really what happens is, before a fight, you move into your ego heavy. You have to. You need your ego to win. When you get hit, your ego is what brings you back to life. No way, not today. I'm getting that money back, right? When you're done with a fight, your ego no longer serves you. It's not there to serve you. It's there to hinder you after a loss. It's there to tell you you're lesser than, you're weak. That's the depression. So the truth is, for fighters, our ego attacks us after the fight. Win, lose, or draw. Now, if you win, your ego builds you. And that can also be a bad thing. It can make you too big. I mean, right? Like, it doesn't always work to have your ego telling you how great you are. You can, the pride comes before the fall, they say. When you lose, your ego tells you how you're lesser, how you're not this, how you're not that. You are your results to your ego. You are not your results to real life, to the world, to me, to you talking right now. I am not my results. So what it comes down to is, not as a fighter, from my own experience, it comes down to not trying to control the world and how they're going to see you, but it comes down to controlling the fact that you get to it comes down to not controlling, accepting that your ego is the one telling you that you don't need your ego right now, that you need to be your regular self. Your ego is not there to serve you, and accept what is. And then that is where the peace can come. If I keep fighting it, then I'm going to be miserable and depressed. But if I accept what is, and I get to move into it, and then I get to get the lesson from it when I accept it. Part of the gift of surrender that I think people don't get is, surrender means to let go and receive. It doesn't mean to just give up. I think people forget the receiving part of surrender. And when I surrender to the loss, it's not easy. It takes time. That's why I've been a month and a half off the radar. It takes time. You got to really look at yourself. And, but then I stop worrying about what other people see, what other people think. And the world mirrors itself back to you. If you show up as love and nourishment to yourself, the world will mirror it back to you. If you show up as, I'm lesser than, I am my results, I'm a loser, the world will mirror itself back to you. So it really comes down to what you're responsible for creating. I'm responsible for creating the environment around me. So if I'm showing up as that's the environment I'm going to get.
Wow.
It's my responsibility.
I love that. That was wonderful. Thank you. And I think that applies to not just fighting, but to life as well. There's a lot that we can learn from that. Dom, you're the man. Much love. If you were here, I'd give you a nice big hug. I appreciate you very much and value your opinion and your insight on this sport and life, to be honest. So thank you for doing this as always. And my best to you, and we'll talk to you soon.
All love. And Darren Wynn, I called that fight. You're the man.
All right.
Hang your head up.
Thank you. Nice. There he is. Dominick Cruz. Man, I mean, how lucky are we, right?